So, and they
Isn't that what the First Amendment's for? It's
Yeah.
not for happy speech. It's for unpleasant things. It irritates people. It frightens people. It angers people. That's the point. That's why it's the envy of the rest of the world. We couldn't have this conversation in 70% of the countries around the world, you and I, right?
I mean, you're right. You're right. I like what you say about that. We are the envy of the rest of the world. The rest of the world, we were supposed to be the exemplary democracy, the ones that were modeling these values, beginning
Right.
with free speech.
All right.
Mayor Eric Adams was campaigning to become mayor, he praised the law and how it can help immigrants. Now that's changed, and Adams isn't the only Democrat turning on the law. Last month, New York Governor Kathy Hochul was on CNN saying that the law is being abused.
Never was it envisioned that this would be an unlimited, universal right or obligation on the city to have to house literally the entire world.
And just this week, former President Bill Clinton said the governor is right in that the law should be changed.
They come up here and we're supposed to shelter people who can't get work permits for 6 months.
New York's motion to change the law comes as Adams is touring Latin America starting Wednesday.
Just landing in Mexico City.
The mayor's goal is to inform people about the realities they'll face if they go to New York City, such as that housing and work are not guaranteed for everyone. On Thursday, Adams attended an event in Mexico City, warning that a large influx of adult male immigrants could have a potential impact on crime.
You don't think it's going to impact shoplifting, mass people that can be involved in, stealing or something that's antisocial behavior.
This comes as up to 800 immigrants a day have been arriving in New York City. That's double the usual number. Adams is scheduled to travel to the capital cities of Ecuador and Colombia before visiting the dangerous Darien Gap that leads through the jungle and into Central America. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
More from Influx. My Sizemore Stiggs has the latest.
Almost nightly, when the numbers run high, the influx of migrants shown on your TV screens. It was a Texas governor, frustrated with the Democratic administration in Washington, who was first to try to change the equation and send thousands to northern cities. In New York, one of the landing spots, the bills and the population are piling up.
I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City.
I reject that notion to use language that this will destroy the fabric of America. America was built upon immigrant labor.
Atlanta Councilwoman Keisha Wade and
Oh,
her colleagues
Lord.
supported
Now they
Andre
want to
Dickens'
use the
initiative
immigrants
fund
for
at nearly
labor,
$7 million.
and Americans are knocked out of work.
Who make it to Atlanta.
I spent several years serving with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I stand behind this mayor in terms of the decision to put this funding forward. At the end of the day, these are families. These are human beings.
The Atlanta cash, secured with a federal grant, will go to a half dozen organizations who will feed the individuals, put them in hotels, and meet other needs. The president decided to elevate some of the migrants who crossed over and give them a limited status.
Work permits, you allow people to then, they're seeking gainful employment, but you're not going to be deported. You're sort of part of this economy in the United States and in the state of Georgia at this point, but it doesn't bestow on you citizenship rights, right? You can't vote.
I'm Morris Diggs.
It is now necessary to resume construction of the border wall. It notes that DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas sees the situation as being serious enough that, quote, it is necessary to waive certain laws, regulations, and other legal requirements in order to ensure the expeditious construction of barriers and roads in the vicinity of the international land border in Starr County, Texas. In my personal opinion, this is just a giant show. It is a scam. And I believe this is really about the shakeup that just took place in Congress, which I will explain in just a bit. On the border wall construction, it should not be interpreted as a change in policy by any means. Generally, look, I support building the border wall, but they're only building this wall in one county in Texas. Elsewhere, They're not changing any policies on tearing down or removing barriers or even on fixing broken parts of the wall, which they're not doing. And even if they are sincere about building the wall, even if they built the entire wall, it means nothing without the system of enforcement behind it. The State Department is not removing its funding from the United Nations to ship illegal immigrants here. The NGOs working with them that bus the people all throughout America are not having their funding cut. The amnesty laws, the sanctuary city laws, the construction of actual housing developments for the illegal immigrants, the programs granting them free health care, none of this is changing. The only thing that's changing is the Department of Homeland Security is going to be continuing to build the border wall in one part of Texas. And if you read the public notice on why they're doing it, well, it's actually pretty clear, I'd say. DHS is required to do this by Congress. If DHS is not establishing at least the illusion of border security, it could be deemed in violation of a congressional order. And that's pretty significant right now. I'll explain. Now, this is all according to a notice of determination that was posted to the U.S. Federal Registry by the Department of Homeland Security. As it states, this whole order ties to the 1996 Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigration Responsibility Act, which was, of course, amended many times through history. Under that act, Mayorkas states in the determination that one of the missions of DHS is border security. And he says, Congress has provided to the Secretary of Homeland Security a number of authorities necessary to carry out DHS's border security mission. Among those authorities is the one cited as the title of this notice. It's at the top. That's Section 102 of the Illegal Immigration Reform Act. So what does Section 102 require in that? Well, this notice says that Congress provided that the Secretary of Homeland Security shall take such actions as may be necessary to install additional physical barriers and roads, including the removal of obstacles to detection of illegal entrance in the vicinity of the United States border to deter illegal crossings in areas of high illegal entry into the United States. Now, not only that, but as this notice actually states, Section 102 also calls on DHS to construct reinforced fencing on the southwest border and provide for the installation of additional fencing, barriers, roads, lighting cameras, and sensors on the southwest border. Now, as the Department of Homeland Security, have they been doing any of this? Well, no, they have not for the most part. Actually, they've been doing the opposite. Construction of the border wall was frozen. Even recently, the Biden administration, they were auctioning off steel beams from the wall for scrap. In Arizona, where the local government tried bypassing DHS and started building its own wall using shipping containers, the Biden administration ordered them to stop. In Texas, the Biden administration, they were cutting the barbed wire fences and ordered the removal of a water barrier that was meant to play the role that DHS was required by Congress to fulfill, and has not fulfilled, of course. And it's not like the DHS doesn't have the power to do something. It's not like the department had its hands tied. No, actually, Secretary Mayorkas actually writes in this official notice, quote, Congress granted to the Secretary of Homeland Security the authority to waive all legal requirements that I, he's saying, in my sole discretion, determine necessary to ensure the expedient construction of barriers and roads authorized by Section 102 of the Act. Now,
And
if
he's
you were
not
to
living
turn
up
on the
to
news, you'll
his
see that
obligations.
Biden, this is what they're saying at least, Biden is waiving 26 federal laws to allow this construction. But if you actually read the notice, you'll see these laws are mainly just on land usage, things like environmental and historical site acts, such as the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act. And they're not doing anything significant by waiving these. Section 102 from Congress already gave them the authority to do that. This is just the narrative most of the media is running with. So, what's really going on here? Well, there's a few ways to read this.
Smoking
One
mirrors.
is that really what Secretary Mayorkas is saying. He writes that the Rio Grande Valley sector in Texas is deemed an area of high illegal entry. He notes as well that as of August, Border Patrol encountered over 245,000 people trying to illegally enter the United States through the Rio Grande Valley sector. But take that in its full context, and you'll know that last month alone, there were 260,000 encounters across the border. So yes, the Rio Grande is a problem, but so is the rest of the border. There were more people last month than there was in the entire year, in other words. So why is Mayorkas only resuming border wall construction in Starr County, Texas? Well, to be fair, this is just the start. But for now, this is the only place we're being told about that they're building this. And let's look back at this. The year 2020, during his campaign for president, Biden vowed that under his administration, there would never be another foot of wall constructed.
Trump campaigned on build that wall. Are you willing to tear that wall down?
No, there will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration.
Now, 3 years later, it's happening. President Joe Biden was actually questioned recently about this decision. He explained that money for the wall was already allocated. He says he tried moving the money elsewhere, but he couldn't. So it seems like this is more in Mayorkas' hands. Watch.
One question on the border wall. The border wall, the money was appropriated for the border wall. I tried to get them to reappropriate, to redirect that money. They didn't. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, there's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what was appropriated. I can't stop that.
Now, as for the White House overall, the press secretary actually seemed generally unaware of what's in the DHS order. Watch.
If the border wall is ineffective, why is the Homeland Security Secretary saying that it's necessary to prevent unlawful entries into the United States?
I have not seen that full statement. I know. I hear you. I'm just saying I've not seen his full statement on that. What I can speak to is for the president. The president's been very clear that he doesn't believe it's effective. He answered that question of your colleague. That's what I can speak to. That's what we're going to talk about. And we've actually said there are smarter ways and more effective ways in dealing with this.
It hasn't worked yet.
When she was pressed about why the administration doesn't just let the funds go unused if they really don't believe in building the wall, this is what the press secretary had to say.
Funds go unused all the time. And why not let it go unused this time?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to the law. I would have to refer you to Department of Justice. I'm not a lawyer, but what I can tell you is that this is a law that we are complying with.
Well, looks like a lot of mixed messaging happening over there, and this with this issue within the Biden administration. But again, wall or no wall, none of it means anything without enforcement. A partial wall is just going to drive people to illegally enter somewhere else. And the illegal immigrants have plenty of options because the border is so porous right now. And even then, the government could build 5 walls back to back. They could stretch it from the Pacific Ocean all the way to the mouth of the Rio Grande. And it still will not stop people from coming. Why is that? The wall is just a deterrent. It is designed, it is meant to slow people down. Its only purpose, right, is to give Border Patrol and law enforcement enough time to go and arrest people and then send them back. But that other side of enforcement is not there. Many of the people coming are just defrauding the amnesty system. I showed this previously when I was in Mexico reporting. They often discard their passports and their driver's licenses to conceal their nation of origin. Then they cross to the U.S., turn themselves in, and then cash in on our loose amnesty system. Trump's Remain in Mexico program, that was supposed to address this by having them, when they're applying for amnesty, wait in Mexico during that process, but the Biden administration tossed that out. Even when Border Patrol and law enforcement do catch people currently, they're just glorified chauffeurs. Most of what they do is just hand people off to the NGOs, or they bring them to the local airport or send them somewhere to be bused or flown throughout the United States. The entire thing, this whole border crisis, it is a giant sham. Any semblance of border security is a puppet show for the American voter. That's it. And even with the new order from DHS, there is no sign that they're going to change any of these other policies. So what's really going on?